want the same things every girl wants. And then a little bit more.
I want you to meet someone.
Oh.
He's every bit as ambitious as you.
Who's this?
She is my niece, Sabina Wurmbrand.
My mother is nagging me to get married. She's even picked out a girl.
That sounds very nice for you. And what do you think?
I think my mother should ask me that question.
Your mother's gonna kill me.
The SS came looking for you today.
I'm not hiding.
Maybe you should.
Sind Sie Sabina Wurmbrand?
We can get you to the border if we leave now.
You know this is ridiculous.
I'm collecting all the verses in the Bible that tell us not to be afraid. I think I might need to lean on all of them. If we stay, I'll follow the others into prison. It will be the end of our life together.
Whosoever will save his life shall lose it. And whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. We believe this or we don't. I think we have to stay. We have a job to do.
Self-releasing around Australia from November 14 is Sabina, Tortured for Christ, the Nazi Years. It is the story of Sabina Wurmbrand, a woman who, along with her husband Richard, would become an iconic figure in post-World War II Christian culture. It's the latest faith-based film, I should say, from director John Grooters, whose body of work represents a commitment to storytelling that enriches society as a whole, and not too many filmmakers can make that claim. Speaking to us from the beautiful US state of Michigan, go Spartans, John Grooters, welcome to Screen Watching.
That's quite an insightful comment from Sydney, Australia, go Spartans on this Monday. That's insightful.
Yeah, I do know my NFL, although we're right in the middle of the baseball at the moment, so I'm very excited to see how the World Series play out, but we can talk sport later.
Yeah, we can be friends. We can be friends, Simon.
Before we get to Sabina's incredible story, tell us a bit about yourself and why you've gravitated to a career in faith-based filmmaking.
That's a great question. Well, for one, we love making film, and we love working in the medium, and we love communicating. And so for 20 years now, we've had a company here in Michigan that's a production company. And so we do lots of projects. We do projects for business, we do projects for commercial, we do curriculums and museums, and the kind of work that we find really covers the spectrum. But I think the cream of the crop is when you can work on a feature film. Feature films for me are the combination of everything that we've ever learned all poured into one project. And it takes such a great team. So many people have to be involved. The relationships that you build and the kind of side-to-side work that is required to make a film come together on time and on budget creates quite a team. And it's fun to work with a great team. So we love the art of it and the project of it. It's also a rare privilege that I got when you can be the writer and the director and then also the editor. And even though we have hundreds of people working on a film, if I can write a screenplay and then direct it, I really have quite a clear vision in my head for how I want these scenes to come together. And if I can be the director but then also the editor, it allows for some efficiencies that might not otherwise be there, which lets us kind of maximize our budgets, because I don't need to film things that I'm not going to use in the edit. I also am not going to miss shots that we need for the edit. So all that is the filmmaking side. The goal of the kind of edification of the projects that we've been able to do is just very, very satisfying to me personally. These are heroes of mine that I get to bring to the screen. As I have learned, more about Sabina Wurmbrand and her husband Richard, I'm just blown away by their character. And so I guess in my own mind, I'm doing hero films in a way, and in some way like Marvel does. My heroes can't fly or, travel through time. They're grounded, in flesh and blood. But to me, the true definition of a hero is that person who starts to look beyond themselves and their own self-interests, and that's rare. But we find that with these characters, and I really love to work on these kind of projects.
There's a strong sense of your work, I guess, playing the role of the modern missionary to a certain extent, and using your God-given talent to spread Christian teachings is a very noble use of your art and craft. Now, if I was to sort of present the statement, new media technology is invaluable as a voice of Christianity, how would you interpret that?
Well, I certainly think we're outnumbered in the use of that voice. I think that the media is being used to promote a lot of things other than a biblical worldview. I also don't think that I would want to say that the films that we're doing are sort of dedicated to that. They should be good stories, regardless, and they should compel the viewer to want to stay with the story from scene to scene and act to act. So making good entertainment, to me, is its own reward. And I really want to hope, and I hope when Sabina comes out, which is in a week, that audiences will find this to be a fun film and a compelling film to watch. At the same time, I agree with you. Sabina is probably going to ultimately be translated into more than 50 languages. And when I think about that, boy, the initial theatrical run is just the tip of the iceberg into the long-term impact and influence the story of Richard and Sabina can have. 4 years ago, we produced Tortured for Christ, which was the story that Richard wrote. We did it in the celebration of the 50th anniversary of the book. So that book came out in 1967, I believe. And I think Richard Wurmbrand might have been the first, or certainly one of the first, who ever survived a communist prison and then wrote and told about the story. And it became a bestseller, and many people that I run into today go, oh yeah, I read that book when I was a kid. So to celebrate the 50-year anniversary, we were able to do that film. It's been translated already into many, many languages. That's really cool to me, to think that the work that we do today might come onto a screen 10 years from now in a country that I've never visited. And it'll still play, and it'll still tell the true story of this incredible couple. And who knows what other people will be inspired in some way by this film, by their faith, by their courage, by their devotion to each other, by their gentleness. They're incredible people. So it's a good way to put it, as you said.
And you've answered this question to a certain extent. It's not enough that you, quote unquote, preach to the converted with a film like Sabina. How would you pitch it? And you've certainly answered this to some extent, but how would you pitch it to those who don't know her story, or who don't have a strong Christian connection?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I don't think specifically whether we're producing this film for any particular audience. We really are just sort of trying to tell this particular story well. If you're a Christian, then you're going to find heroes in these two that inspire you to maybe take a deeper step, a more selfless step in your walk. If that's not your story, this is still one of the most fascinating times and places in the last couple hundred years, which was, Romania, Eastern Europe in the late 30s and early 40s. Here's this beautiful little country known as the breadbasket of Europe. Bucharest is known as Little Paris. They are living kind of the high life, and they're up and coming as a country and as a culture. And Richard and Sabina, man, they are riding that wave. They are successful young people enjoying sort of the spoils of an up and coming culture. And into that world comes this worldview, this Nazi worldview based on hatred and based on propaganda. And the Nazis come through with this strong message of division. And in this case, they're specifically dividing against the Jews and the culture, blaming them for everything. I mean, if the temperature's too high, it's the Jews' fault. If someone gets sick, it's the Jews' fault. The propaganda that the Nazis put out, it's so bizarre because it's so ridiculous. 97% of all the world's problems are the Jews' fault. And they put out this ridiculous message, but they put it out enough times that it starts to infiltrate through the culture. And of course, then Romania gets infested with these Nazis, and they take over their country, and their lifestyle changes, and Richard and Sabina are caught in this web. 3 times thrown in prison within a half an hour of their own execution. And it's an incredible, compelling story how you can be living your own life, harming nobody, right? Living a life just completely with no criminal activity. And then all of a sudden the government forces start to sweep you out of your normal world. A lot of people in the world today are worried about that, whether their faith is Christian or Jewish or anything or not. A lot of people today are worried about, could this happen again? And so by looking at history, I think it can open up some people's eyes to how fast your country and your way of life can completely be swept aside once an ideology takes root in a culture. And then what's interesting about Romania, and the reason this is the prequel of a 2-part series, is it's one of the few countries, actually the only one I know of, that switched sides halfway through World War II. And they left the Axis, the Nazis, and they actually aligned with the Allies. And while that might have seemed to be a wise move, what that did was just open the doors for the Soviet communists to pour in 1 million strong in 1948. And once again, I say this innocent little country, it's the way I look at it, they just got hit with a body blow from the left and then from the right. And first it's the Nazis, and then it's the communists. And the grip that those two worldviews held on Romania lasted until 1989, when finally they got rid of Ceausescu and communism. And that country is now working on emerging as a society after all those years of what I would just say was just strategic oppression. So that's a crazy story too. And I think you really come along and you capture both the, some of the glory of that culture and the beauty of the countryside. It's a beautiful country, by the way. Romania is a beautiful country, and it's a beautiful country to film in. And we filmed in stunningly wonderful locations. Citadels that are the oldest inhabited citadels in all of Europe, wow. and mountainsides and countryside. So there, I guess to me, there's a beauty to the film. There's a historic reality to the film, and that it's a true story. I think means that it's a worthy story for anybody, not only interested in history, but maybe wanting to keep an open eye to what's going on in the world today.
And I guess finally, I want to ask about your casting. This incredible actress who has to go through a huge arc as a character in this film. Tell us about working with the team in front of the camera.
I'm so pleased you asked that. So we started casting really back in 2016 when we were producing Tortured for Christ. And at that time, I'd never worked in Romania before, and I was, I think, realistically worried about the cast. Who can I find? Am I going to have to bring in actors from around the world? So what I found, Simon, is that Bucharest had a very active theater community. Theater's a big thing in the town of Bucharest, a town of about 4 million. And there's national theaters and big theaters. There's also lots of small theaters and off the beaten path theaters and independent theater. And while we were beginning to audition, we realized we have a wealth of professional theatrical actors that we were able to audition. And that's when we cast, for the first film, Imo Mondanach as Richard, and then Raluca Botez as Sabina. And those two are fantastic, absolutely fantastic, subtle actors. They understand the role, they take it seriously. They're not in it for, I guess, the starhood of it all. They're in it because they love the craft of becoming and relating a character. So the very first question, and I wrote this as a prequel, flew to Bucharest, and the very first question, whether we were going to move forward with this project or not, was to get Raluca and Emil in the room and say, you guys, are you in again? Because I can't do this without you, and I wouldn't want to. So they both said an enthusiastic yes. And then we began the casting process. I worked with Cassandra, a local casting agent, and we worked hard. We auditioned lots of people. I film every second of every audition. We carry out lots of scenes. We work to try to put the right characters together on the screen. And at the end of the day, the talent of this cast, in my humble opinion, is second to none.
Yeah, no, they're wonderful. You've made a very moving, a very potent film that I hope finds the audience it certainly deserves. It's self-releasing, as I mentioned, down here in Australia from November 14. John Grooters, thank you so much for joining us on Screen Watching and for a terrific film, and all the very best.
Thank you for your time. It's great to be with you, Simon. Thank you.